Ability, the podcast of the ARC, Southern Maryland. We're more than meets the eye. Welcome to our second podcast of January 2024. Meet a 28-year-old man with autism who seems to be the definition of what it means to be autistic and a visual thinker.
My name is Justin Valenti, author, self-advocate, and artist.
Because the ARC Southern Maryland is encouraging its clients, including my podcasting students, to speak up for themselves and explain their needs and what they're about to others, we'll focus on this thing called self-advocacy. I'm Rita Rich. Welcome. I teach podcasting and I host See Me, See My Ability. And you're a volunteer member of the board of directors for the ARC Maryland, correct?
Yes.
How did that come about? Some guys your age might think, well, I'm too young. I got a lot of other stuff going on. Why did that come up and how come you're doing it?
It came up in 2019 after I completed Partners in Policymaking. A year later, the person in charge of the ARC Maryland wrote and asked me if I wanted to be on the board of directors, and I thought it would be an honor, so that's how I signed up.
Partners in Policymaking originated in the state of Minnesota in 1987. It was a training program designed by the Minnesota Governor's Council on Developmental Disabilities. Since then, Partners programs have been implemented throughout the U.S., including Maryland, and worldwide. Reportedly, 27,000 Americans have graduated from Partners programs in our country, made up of adults with disabilities and parents of younger children with developmental disabilities. The program teaches its students how to influence public policy. The ARC of Maryland teaches Partners in Policymaking, and Justin took the course in 2019. Not everybody can say they're a self-advocate and also say that they've got autism. When did you realize that you were not like other people in your age group?
When I was very young, I was lining up VHS tapes and doing a lot of weird, unusual things that people who were my age weren't doing that. And so I went to see a doctor, and that's how I was diagnosed with autism, is because the doctor realized that I was different from other kids in my family, and I also realized that I was different.
At what age did you figure out you better speak up and get heard?
I figured out that I needed to speak up and get heard when I went to my first IEP meeting in, I think, first or second grade.
IEP stands for Individualized Educational Plan.
I figured that the teachers wanted to hear from me because I'm their student. It means more coming from me than it does coming from my parents.
Justin says he has no problem being labeled as autistic.
I have read about autism, and I know that it's different than other disabilities, and I consider myself very lucky to have it because a lot of the opportunities I've had and the people I met, I would not have had and I wouldn't have met if I didn't have a disability.
Justin recently received an award from Maryland Governor Wes Moore for his fluid paint art and his contributions to art in public places in our state. Give me just one thing that you would like Governor Moore to do for people with autism and other disabilities. What's something you really want Maryland to do better?
So I think for me, I use public transportation a lot. And right now, Montgomery County is one of the only counties in the state that has reliable public transportation, and I feel that the transportation in other parts of Maryland is spotty, can be unreliable. So I'd like there to be more like public transportation so that people with disabilities and other people can get places, like get to other areas of the state without needing a car or needing to get a ride, like across the Bay Bridge, for instance.
Well, Justin is right. It's hard to be a tourist in our state without a car. You cannot find a seamless, time-efficient way to go from the Western Mountains to Ocean City, or from the Northeast Corridor to our Southern Maryland. Many of us with varying degrees of physical, intellectual, and developmental disabilities do not drive. Justin focuses so much on using public transit as he's got a job as an office clerk at a federal government agency in Montgomery County. Why don't you explain the job that you have at, what is it, the National Institutes of Mental Health, is it?
Yes, it is. So I'm an office clerk, and I help with various tasks that the office needs. I work with on a computer for my job, and I telework some of the time and work in person some of the time. And this job is really one of my favorite jobs that I've had because the people are very nice and understanding. The work's not too difficult, and I really like going in person sometimes as opposed to teleworking all the time.
Well, if you like people, that's perfect.
Yes.
We continued our conversation about trusting others. Some of the women who I teach are scared about even trusting the bus drivers with public transit. So do you trust people? Do you have a problem with trusting others, or are you okay with that?
I'm okay with that. I don't really have a problem with trusting others as long as they keep their promises.
Has anybody tried to touch you inappropriately? Because a lot of the women are scared about the potential of that happening.
No, no one's tried to touch me inappropriately, but they have there has been some bullying when I was a student, but there was no touching.
How did you handle the bullying?
So I told someone that I was being bullied, and then like it was usually a teacher or a school administrator right after it happened, and they would help me resolve the problem. And most of the time the students were forgiving, and they were sorry, and they meant that they were sorry.
Can we talk about your living arrangements? Where do you live?
So I live in a single family house in Gaithersburg, Maryland, with my parents and my dog and my sister. And eventually I'd like to move into an apartment of my own. But for right now, I live like in a room that's like connected to the house, but it's like my own space within the single family house. It's not like in a bedroom upstairs or in a basement. It's on the main level, and I really like living here.
It's like your own apartment.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's a wonderful arrangement. I'm sure your parents sacrificed to make sure you had your own space as a grown man. You know, you're 28.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Do you worry about having your parents around? We're all getting older. Do you think about mortality issues, things of that nature?
Sometimes, like I think about my future, and I'm actually kind of nervous because my parents won't be there forever, and pretty soon I'm gonna have to start making like some really difficult decisions. But I'm happy that they will not have to worry about me. But I'm also sad because that that can happen to everyone.
Nobody knows about the future, and we all, it's a gamble. It's 50-50 whether we'll be worse off or better off as we get
Right.
older. Well,
Yes.
I want you to talk